Hello everyone, and welcome to the Suzuki Hustler. Meet the Hustler, an adorable crossover-styled K-car from Suzuki. And if you're wondering what K-cars are, these are a special car class in Japan with specific restrictions on vehicle size and engine displacement in exchange for reduced tax and insurance rates. This class was originally created in 1949 to make the car more affordable for the Japanese, so they were purpose-built to be bare-bones transportation. But their low prices, compact dimensions, and efficient drivetrains meant huge popularity within their home market, particularly in cities which were littered with narrow roads. Back when it launched in 2014, this first-generation Hustler had a base MSRP of around $10,000 US. This particular car being in the top X trim adds stuff like climate control, heated front seats, automatic xenon headlights, and hill start assist for around $14,000 US. Under the hood, you get a naturally aspirated 660cc inline-3 engine, delivering 52 horsepower and 63 Nm of torque to the front wheels via a CVT, along with a mild hybrid system, giving the engine a little 2 horsepower boost. You could even get a turboed version with 64 horsepower and 95 Nm of torque, and even all-wheel drive. Now I know what you're thinking, but it's not actually that bad because this little guy weighs less than 800 kilos, so it's quicker than you might think. It's even lighter than an ND2 Miata for those of you wondering. But that's besides the point. The whole philosophy of this car is to embrace the small, and Suzuki has done so by cramming as much joy and as much usability into this thing as they possibly could. And from the outside, it really works. I absolutely adore the way this car looks. It's just so cute and fun. It's so innocent. Like, look at those little round headlights and little mouth in the middle of the front. On the side, it gets even crazier because the proportions are completely absurd. You got what should be an SUV with the black plastic cladding around the wheels, but it looks like someone shrunk the front and made the wheels comically small, so it just looks like a toy. I love it. And best of all, when you get closer and when you try to shake it around, it even moves like a toy. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just so fun. I love the way this car looks, and because of its proportions, there's a real benefit to that. Check it out. On the front and the back, you have barely any overhang, which means your departure and approach angles are actually pretty good. Not to mention you have 18 centimeters of ground clearance, which means this could actually work as a mini off-roader, especially if you get the four-wheel drive version, which is really cool. I love that it's actually usable. And you can get some pretty cool colors as well with this car aside from orange. Suzuki offers pink, blue, and yellow among others with the white roof. And I just love that they tried to make something that's so cute and so fun and so different from every other black and white and silver vehicle on the road. This commands attention in a way that very few other vehicles do, because this just makes people smile. When I go on the road, when I go through parking lots, I see people looking at it and just laughing at it and smiling at it because it's so ridiculous. When I picked up my mom in the airport, normally I drive the Lexus GS, but when I showed up in this and it was bouncing on speed bumps like a little cartoon character, she couldn't stop laughing. She was laughing for a solid 5 minutes when I got there, and I was laughing too because it's just completely preposterous. It just looks like a toy. It's so fun. How can you not love it? But what I really love about this is that all of the character and all of the packaging efficiency that Suzuki has implemented on the outside really works its way on the inside. And I think that's where this car really shines. So let's check it out. Okay, now I love this interior for a variety of reasons. Aesthetically, I think it's cool, I think it's funky, and it's also got this really happy vibe in here because there's so much color. One thing that's really cool is that these plastic panels in the front are color matched to the exterior of the car, only if you have orange or yellow. With the other colors, you get this in white. I think that's a missed opportunity. You also get color matched seat piping, again, only if you have the car in orange or yellow. Again, missed opportunity, but that's okay. regardless of the exterior color you go for, I think this interior is just so cool in a weird kind of retro way. And there are some really nice details that are carried over from the outside. If you notice that the headlights have that little rectangular extension beyond the circle, you actually have that carried over in the speaker grills and the front AC vents. That is really cool attention to detail. Now, in terms of material quality, it's no luxury car. Everything in here is pretty much just, hard, scratchy plastics. You do get a little bit of soft touch material on the armrests and the gear shift and the steering wheel, but that's pretty much it. But you kind of expect that when you get a car that's less than $10,000 US, but the build quality itself, that is very solid. Whenever I drive, there's no shakes or rattles within. It feels solid. I don't think you're going to have an issue. Now, in terms of ergonomics and comfort, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, primarily because of the dimensions of the car. So first of all, one cool thing that I want to highlight before I start going over this is the fact that you have a little extension to your seat here, which means in case you park next to someone really close to your right, you can scooch over to the left side and exit through that door, which I think is really cool. Now, in terms of comfort, you will have to deal with the fact that you have a narrow car. You can't create more space out of nothing. So sacrifices had to be made somewhere, and it shows in the driver's position. So the door is like right there. And your leg, when you have your foot on the gas or brake pedal, it's like right there. It's touching the window controls, and it does feel kind of claustrophobic, especially when you consider where your other leg is positioned. Because the pedal box isn't that large, and you're sitting kind of upright, so it doesn't have to be that large. Your legs kind of want to spread out a little bit because you can't actually extend your legs that far back against the firewall, which means your leg kind of brushes up against the center control stack here, which isn't great because you have a little bit of a protrusion right there. And on longer journeys, when your leg presses against it or rests against it, it does kind of get irritating over time. It's fine over city journeys, but I would prefer a padded area to rest my leg on longer journeys, but that's not what this car is designed for, so I can't really complain too much about it. What I can complain about is the gas pedal, because actually during driving it's way too light, which means instead of resting my foot against it, I sort of have to support my foot and prevent it from pressing too hard, which gets a bit fatiguing over time for your muscles. So again, kind of an annoyance, but when dealing with city journeys, it's not too bad. As for the seats themselves, they're fine. They could be a little more supportive around the sides. The bolsters aren't that strong, and headrest isn't that soft, but it's fine. Nothing to complain about. Now, the steering wheel is in an okay position. I have tilting adjustment, but I don't have telescoping adjustment. I wish I can pull that a bit towards me, but luckily I can move the seat quite a bit forward and back, so I can get to a comfortable position. In terms of the infotainment, this is basically like a standard head unit. You can get it replaced. None of the functionality of the car is really integrated into this, so I'm just going to leave it as is. It works fine, this Pioneer unit. I think it's okay, relatively responsive. So, in terms of the overall interior comfort and ergonomics and usability, it's good, but the comfort itself could be better for long journeys. But for short journeys, it's fine. Not amazing, you will have to deal with that, but it's fine. Now, where this car truly excels is in its packaging efficiency, because Suzuki has designed so many storage compartments and so many ways to configure the cabin to store more stuff than you might need on a regular basis to make this thing truly versatile, and it is awesome. Let's start with the normal stuff first. So in the front, obviously, you have door pockets and door bins, which really can only carry two-dimensional stuff like laptops, I guess. The rear ones are a little bit bigger, so you can carry bottles and things like that. In the front, you have even more storage cubbies, though. You have one right underneath your engine start-stop button. You have one right underneath your steering column. You have one underneath your head unit and one underneath your center control stack. You have an open shelving unit next to your center control stack. You have a glove box, which is an okay size. There's a compartment up here that can be used to store quite a few things, and this also doubles as a table with a maximum weight of 1.5 kilos, so you can actually put a decently sized laptop on it if you want to work or something like that, or you can even use it for eating. That's really cool. Now, aside from that, You also have under-seat storage for the front passenger. Check it out. You have this little string at the rear here. If I pull it, you reveal under-seat storage. And what's even cooler about this is I can lift this out and carry this home in case, for example, I have some groceries that I need to bring to and from the car. I don't need an extra bag. I can carry this around and just put it back in the seat, not taking up any other vital space in the cabin. How haven't more manufacturers done that? I'll never know. But that is really clever. Now, apart from that, you also have a cup holder right underneath the AC vent, and another one for the passenger as well, which is kind of nice because if you put a drink here, you can get it cooled by the AC. That is clever thinking. Now, aside from that, you have even more ways to configure the rear of the car. You can fold down the rear seats, you can slide them forward and back to create more passenger space or more trunk space, and you have this little flap that allows the floor to be flush with the seat in front, even with the gap between the trunk and the seat. That is really clever. You can fold them flat, and you can even fold the front seat flat. And if you notice, the back has some interesting shapes. That's because you can use it as a table when you go camping if you want to eat or drink something. Suzuki even makes accessories for the Hustler if you want to take it outdoors for camping and fishing and things like that. You have cargo nets, tents, bug nets for the windows. That is awesome. Suzuki has thought of a lot of different ways to package this car with the most efficient storage solutions in mind, and they really have taken advantage of every single cubic inch of this place, and it shows. It's genuinely really impressive to see how much thought went into this interior. I absolutely love it. So let's go and drive our Suzuki Hustler. All right, first of all, you got a foot-operated parking brake. I'm not a big fan of that, especially because if my left foot is all the way till the very end of the firewall, the parking brake rubs against my foot, which isn't great on a long journey, but it's doable in the city. One real cool thing about this car, though, is that because the glass house is so very large and the car is really boxy, you got a pretty good feel of where exactly the corners of the car are relative to objects around you, which means even without sensors, this doesn't have any sensors, by the way, you can easily navigate this into a super tight parking space, as I'll demonstrate like right over there. So first of all, you have really light steering and a pretty quick steering rack, which means you don't really have to turn the wheel that much. Now, the reversing camera, I'm not sure if this is aftermarket or stock. It's not aligned with the center, and it basically looks like hot garbage. So I'm not even gonna try. Instead, we're gonna back this in the old-fashioned way, using our eyes and using the mirrors. And look, I can tell exactly where every square inch of this car is, and I can get it within that parking spot, no problem. Check it out. There's the rear wheel, and I'm using my reversing camera as basically a distance marker, and there we go, we're in, no problem. Haha. Oh man, you really do appreciate small cars for being super easy to maneuver around tight spaces. So now that we're through with that, let's actually drive this on some faster roads. All right, 52 horsepower, let's go. Oh, it's so slow. But that's kind of the fun of it, right? Because the car is so slow, it's comically slow, you have to kind of approach its limits reasonably often, so it makes the car feel fun to drive. But anyway, okay, let's get back to something serious. So, town driving. Okay, in town, from around 50 to 80 kph, the car is really sorted. Okay, first, the engine. Supposedly, an i3 shouldn't feel that refined. It should feel kind of rough around the edges. I drove a Toyota Yaris Cross, which had almost the same setup as this, front-wheel drive, inline 3, CVT, but no hybrid system like this does. And that feels really rough. But this, the mild hybrid, makes this feel way more expensive than it is. Okay, it's an inline 3, which means obviously it's gonna sound good. It sounds like half of an inline 6, basically. So it's gonna be nice. But the vibrations, because of that mild hybrid, are dampened out, and the little electric motor attached to it can fill in sort of the gaps between the pulses. So the end result is a power plant that feels way smoother than it normally is without a mild hybrid system. But I noticed that because there are so many things that can alter the amount of torque the car has at any given point, the CVT, the mild hybrid system, and the stop-start, the braking ability, especially when you are very near a standstill, is a little inconsistent. But in terms of fuel efficiency, it is next level. In stop-start traffic, which is where many cars fail to deliver good efficiency, this will do 6 liters per 100 kilometers or less, which is insane. That's like 40 US miles per gallon. For reference, my Lexus, which has a 3.5 liter V6 that loves a drink, will do 20 to 30 liters per 100 kilometers. It's insane, and that's not even flooring it. This, you have to floor it reasonably often because it's so slow. And it just makes that efficiency, that fuel efficiency, so much more impressive. That's why you have a small car, because it's insanely efficient because of the laws of physics. You don't have to move that much mass, therefore you don't use that much energy. That is awesome. Another thing to note, in town driving, again, from 50 to 80 kph, the NVH is pretty decent. In terms of noise, you don't really get that much road or wind noise in here. I guarantee you it's going to be worse on the highway. But it's not bad for town driving. In terms of the suspension, it irons out many of the bumps very well. It's softly sprung, but even when you're on like a relatively smooth road, it always kind of shakes. Although the vibrations themselves are not strong, again, it doesn't really ever feel settled the way like a larger car with a more sophisticated suspension setup feels. But for the city, it never really feels like it's out of control. And when you're maneuvering, yes, it is very lively and it's super maneuverable. It never feels like it's going to fall over. So I think for town driving, this thing is an absolute win. But how is it when you start to push it a little bit? So right now, we're pretty much done with the town driving segment. So let's take it on a highway to see what it's like. Okay. So from 70 kph, the limit here is 110. Let's go. Oh, it's so slow. It's so slow. But you know, actually, it can go on the highway with reasonable grace. Because of the CVT, it can choose like a really, really high gear. Check it out, we're at 100 kph right now, and I'm only doing 2,000 RPM, and this is on a flat road. So the problem isn't really like the power, just stay in like the slower lanes, that's fine. I think the main issue here, as you can tell, let me just be quiet for a second. You get a lot of wind and road noise, particularly here, because the windshield is so steeply raked. You get a lot of wind noise from this, the A-pillar specifically. The suspension is coping reasonably well. Again, it's very soft, but not so soft that it's uncontrollable. But when you're on a road that has a lot of crosswinds, you do really feel the car moving side to side, because first of all, it doesn't weigh that much, and because the car's side is pretty much a vertical wall. There's a lot of motions left and right, which just gives the feeling that the car isn't really settled on a highway. So overall impressions, if you're doing mostly city driving with some highway, let's say you're doing most of your commuting, most of your errands within the city, and occasionally you have to go out of state or out of a city to another area on a highway, then yes, this would be a great car for that. It's super efficient, it's really fun, and it just gets the job done, and it's really easy to maneuver around town because of its size. It is a brilliant car for that purpose. However, if you're doing mostly highway driving, like me, every day I travel this exact highway around 20 something to 30 kilometers every day at really high speeds, like 80 to 110 kph. No, I wouldn't pick this for several reasons. First of all, the noise, there's a lot of it. It doesn't feel that relaxing to drive this on the highway at this speed. Plus, I use the sound system. It sounds kind of okay, I suppose, but the surrounding noise is so high that in town speeds, if you can hear the sound system normally, you won't really be able to pick it out at higher speeds, which is again a consequence of it having not that much sound deadening. Second of all, because of its size and its weight, it's really easily affected by crosswinds, such as on this bridge right here. I do feel a little bit of steering weight even if I hold the steering wheel dead straight, which again isn't that relaxing, and it's borderline unsafe, especially if you drive this at high speeds. Plus, the short wheelbase means that it truly isn't that stable when you're going really quickly. I'd much rather be in a conventional non-K car with better safety equipment than be in this. It is a little bit scary if you have to do it every day. I could think of better alternatives for that. So it's absolutely phenomenal in the city. It's decent on the highway. What is it like when you truly take advantage of its size? Welcome to Fei-Ngo-Shan Road, everybody. This is the most Japanese countryside-like road we have in Hong Kong. And it's just a blast to drive around in this thing. Well, first of all, some part of the satisfaction comes from this just fitting in any small gap easily. But also, I mean, this thing doesn't weigh anything, which means it's just fun to chuck it around bends like this. It's super agile, super maneuverable, and insanely responsive to steering, although the wheels aren't that big and the sidewall is quite thick. But it's just so fun. And one of the best parts about driving like such a small and relatively less powerful car is the fact that you can readily approach its limits, and many times are required to approach its limits when daily driving it, which is what makes it all the more fun. Because it's as they say, right? It's more fun to drive a slow car fast than it is to drive a fast car slow, and it really shows with this thing because it's just so fun. And up the hills, honestly, it's fine. Like, the CVT picks the right gear ratio and it just goes. It's not going to be that fast, but it goes. And hill start assist comes standard with this trim, so when starting, it's easy. Even in parking lots, you don't roll back, although you have that annoying little foot brake. You don't need it. And there's something so pure about driving such a basic car and being able to approach its limits. Oh man, this is just such a riot. I'm not even breaking the limit. My GS, sometimes I feel like Hong Kong roads hold it back. Because, I mean, it's a big car, it's fast. But there are not many roads you can enjoy that gearbox. Like, at 50, you haven't even reached the top of first gear. But this you can enjoy it anywhere. And that's really the charm of this car. Right? Like, no, it's not the most feature-rich. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles. It doesn't even have automatic wipers. But Suzuki seemed to have engineered so many ways to take advantage of what it is. A small car that's efficient, fun, practical. And it can do so much with what it has. You ever see those movies where the protagonist moves to the big city and sees opportunity literally everywhere and has this like wide-eyed and positive approach to life at an almost naive level? Well, that's what it feels like to drive this car. Like, the way it was designed It's just so happy to try anything. It's an adventure buddy. You can take it up a mountain, you can take it on your commutes, you can take it off-roading. It's just so happy. It just wants to try everything. That's the spirit of this car, right? It doesn't have much, but it tries to do, and it's happy to try anything with what it's given. It doesn't matter if it does it well or not, it's just happy to try anything. And I think that's an approach to life we can all adopt. If it suits your lifestyle, this is just a fantastic car.